Hey, it's actually been a while since anything has been uploaded here. I hope you'll forgive me for that. And this video is going to be about Netherworld, as I know there have been so many guides uploaded. I'd love to make it a ultimate guide, or maybe like a finished guide, in which I'll be explaining which weapons are the best, armors, all the threats in Netherworld, what strategies to use, what perks to use, anything you might actually find useful for the Netherworld. So actually, what is that place? Netherworld is a dynamic dungeon in which you can have fun and profit with your friends, complete strangers, or just by yourself. Armors, weapons and perks I'll be discussing at the end of the video because it's quite a long topic. But trust me that even with less than a warlock you can really rock in Netherworld. Also, since the video appeared to be much longer than I thought it would be, I'll put the whole content in the description so you can skip the parts you don't really need. Right now let's just jump into the main objectives of the Netherworld. To enter this place you'll need to access the shop, then the special items, and buy yourself red scrolls. Actually, you can also buy the 10 pack, which is actually cheaper if it comes to buying more of them. You'll need to click on twice to go with random people. If you'd actually like to go by yourself, alone, you'll need to find a red portal. Actually, I'm going to put it in the description. If you'd like to go with your friends, bear in mind that there can only be 3 people in the Netherworld, so you and 2 other friends, or 2 other random people. To enter with friends, just find the red portal and enter it with them. So, what do you do in Netherworld? You'll need to find all the 4 keys to finish the Nether. You'll stumble across Nether crystals, which you can later break for gems, treasure chests, Nether souls that will be useful for alchemy. Also sometimes into the Nether vendor, which will allow you to buy some stuff from deep Nether and the scrolls needed to enter that. But that will be for a different video. Finally finding the keys and being able to exit the Nether. Bear in mind that you don't have to kill all the monsters, and regardless of your score, you can always leave the Nether if all the keys are found. Or if you die. By default you have 3 lives there, but with a perk you can extend it to 4 lives, which will also help you, but about the perks will be later. Keep in mind that if you lose in Netherworld, you will only keep the Nether crystals and a bit of EXP you have earned. You will lose all the gems you have earned there so far. As we're done with that, let's jump into the threats. Well, at first of course will be monsters. This little fellow, the Flame Jumper, is a non-aggressive monster, which has a slight knockback when he touches you, and 300 health. Flameflyer is also a non-aggressive monster, with a slight knockback and 200 health. Flame Charger is a completely different thing because it's a aggressive type of a monster. He also has 350 health, he charges at you as soon as he sees you, which means the best strategy is to jump over him, then kill him. He also does a strong knockback and a lot of damage. ROBE caster doesn't move, but it shoots strong projectiles which knock you back and also deal a lot of damage. It has 400 health. The Staffcaster is a close thing, it doesn't move, but it actually shoots 4 projectiles which can be also deadly, they also knock you back, and it has 400 health. Tentacle shooters stand in one place, shoot all the time, have 240 health, and the best strategy is to jump over them to kill them. Moving to another aggressive monster, we have the Abyss Walker, which has 360 health. It knocks you back once you're hit. It's best to jump above him and then just kill him. Coming to a Nether Wraith. That monster is a bit different because it chases the player around the map. It stops after you're far enough. It doesn't knock you back once you're hit by it. And also it has 200 health. So coming to the traps, we've got killing flame traps, killing spike traps, also killing spike bombs, and spikes. Coming to less harmful traps, we've got shooter traps and lava. Right now let's jump into preparation. Starting from useful perks. 10% more health, 5% more damage, 1 more health in Netherworld, which will be useful and I have told you about it before. 10 more armor, more EXP from killing the AI monsters, so the monsters from Netherworld. Some immunity to lava. 10% more damage to all enemies, 10% more health when you're using a familiar, a pet, 50% more damage to all the players and enemies, but that will reduce your frequency by 50%. 5% more damage when you're using a ranged weapon, 3 more elemental armor, 5%, that's not really useful, because you lose health in Netherworld pretty often. Also increased chance of critical hits, less health but more damage, and also really useful, removing knockback when you're being hit. 3% more damage when you're owning a familiar, and that's it. I'm going to showcase all the perks in a different video because I don't want to take too much time in here. There are a couple of daily quests that include finishing Nether in under 8 minutes and killing a number of Nether monsters for either Nether Scrolls prize, Nether Crystals prize, or a part of a Nether set. There are also a couple of Nether achievements which include finishing Netherworld with all monsters still alive, slaying a certain amount of monsters starting with 500 monsters, ending at 50,000. Also, finishing the Netherworld and exiting it via portal, starting with 10 times, ending at 100 times. Also, before everything else, we should check the potions that are the most useful for Netherworld. Starting with the Nether exit potion, which warps you straight to the exit gate. Also the Nether key potion, which warps you to the nearest Nether key. These two potions can be used above level 75. Also the healing potion, which will heal you up to the full health, and the Flask of Rage, which will let you deal 40% more damage for 5 minutes. These two potions can be used above level 50. Also all the potions can be created in magic cauldrons, but alchemy I'll leave for a different video, as I said before. Finally, to the armors and the weapons. As said, I'm going to include the best ones and more budget ones, but first we're going to start with the one that you can buy for less than a warlock. At first I'm going to explain that you can buy Bitcoins from other players, and their current price is 500 or a bit less for a warlock. If you've got enough Bitcoins, you can go to Pixel's exchange, then check for the items that I have checked, or the others like armor, shield, or Viking. Always check the info first to see how much armor does it have. The more, the better, always. I don't think you'll have a problem with finding a good armor. I really wanted to find something with a critical strike chance, but I just couldn't. So if you're looking for something, buy a good old Viking spear or maybe a Viking axe. Something that's still in your budget. But we went with a spear. So you are done with your good and relatively cheap set. If you've got a bigger budget, you can invest in a ring mail and the knight's helmet. Or into the chaos armor without the helmet to replace it with the red kabuto and the wood elf mask. Also, it would be cool if you had the hero's necklace for some extra elemental resistance. I wanted to have a small talk about the wings later on, but since they are kind of a basic equipment, you can buy the cheapest pixie wings for 1 or 2 warlocks for a double jump ability. Also, if you could spare around 3 warlocks for a frost shield, it wouldn't be a bad idea to get more armor and the fire resistance. I'm also using 2 superhero items here, Retributor Mask and Retributor Tail, but since they are a bit more costly, I'm not going to count them as an absolute must. They would be nice to get if you'd like to have some extra armor, but it's really your choice, and the superhero items I'm going to count as the highest tier armor, which will be in a moment. Also, for cheap weapons, I would always choose the Claymore. It has 2% of critical strike chance, and it costs like 1 to 2 warlocks. Also, there's Sunhammer, even though I had Hammer of Summer here, which costs like 5 warlocks, but it has 7% of critical strike chance. It's one of the best weapons, the best entry weapons for me at least. Because if not, they're already high damage. With a critical strike, you can actually double it. I'm putting a small summary here. Now, coming to the highest tier weapons and armors, we've got a chance to talk about the elemental damage and resistance. The best armors and weapons, for short. Starting with weapons first, there are 7 types of damage. Normal, earth, wind, fire, water, dark, and light. Even though the first 3 types might be good, we're going to focus only on the last 3. Because best existing weapons for Nether deal mostly or only water, dark or light damage. Starting with water weapons, there are 3 of them. They are all limited, so the only way to get them is to buy them from the players. Starting with the small water gun costing around 80 warlocks at the moment. Pro water gun that costs around 120. And ending at the elite water gun, which costs above 500 warlocks. Starting with the dark weapons, we've got the new Galactic Champion Plasma Gun, which can be found for around 20 warlocks, or even less. Next up, the red laser sword, costing around 180 at the moment. The new laser sword, even though I couldn't find a picture of its info, can be found for around 200 or more warlocks. Also, the most expensive dark sword, being able to be bought for 430 warlocks. Going to the light tier weapons and starting with my personal favorite, the Berserker Battle Arms. We've got a great weapon that can deal the same damage as the green and blue laser swords for much lower price of around 30 warlocks. You could easily clear the Netherworld in matter of only minutes. The only downside is that it replaces your armor and the arms, because it's some kind of a suit you have to wear. Now about the laser swords, green and blue, first one costing around 120 warlocks and the second one 150 at the moment. They both deal the same damage and take only the weapon slot, not as the battle arms, making them an ideal choice but for much higher price. The only thing I wouldn't recommend is using fire weapons such as ray guns or flame swords in Netherworld. Some of the monsters just have a high fire resistance, and using these weapons might end like this. So coming to the conclusion, the cheapest weapon would be Galactic Champion Plasma Gun, while the best ones, for me at least, would be either the Battle Arms or one of the laser swords, green, blue or purple. Right now, mostly the best armor is being provided by Shogun set, and the superhero sets from which every single one has something good to offer, which means you can assemble a set out of different parts to have the highest defense. Even though the big amount of damage done by Nether monsters is from the fire type, and for example, the Bombach superhero set has a lot of fire resistance, the normal armor can also block the damage done by fire. If you'd really like to have an identical set, every single one superhero set would work. But if I were to choose, I would go for Punch Pull set or the Superfly one, because of the highest shared defense. Adding maybe the Retributor's Tail or maybe Nightchick's Mask to Punch Pull set for some extra defense. I'm also going to put the highest defense set here, but the prices of superhero items change every time, so I'm better off sending you to the world buy superhero or just to ask people that buy them or sell them. Also remember that all that equipment we've discussed about here is just to make your journey in Netherworld easier. So even with no armors, no fancy weapons, no perks or even with no wings, but using the correct tactics, you can really do well in there. That's why this chapter will be about the tips and tricks and some advices to help you improve in Netherworld and even in the dungeons alike. So starting with the long-awaited way to profit from Netherworld, it would be best if you picked up at least 20 Nether crystals to get around 200 gems, or to win the Netherworld with most of the monsters killed and maybe some chests with crystals collected. So if you manage to defeat most of the monsters, you can get around 400 to 500 gems for finishing alive. And also if you collected most or all crystal chests, where one crystal gives around 10 gems on average, you can get around 400 gems from them. So even 900 gems if you don't sell the crystals for just around 100 you spent on the scroll. Also you can of course sell nether crystals you have stacked up, because right now they do cost around 200 to 220 per warlock. Also it's good to remember that there is no time limit in Netherworld. Well, unless you AFK in one spot for quite a long time. But other than that, take your time, don't rush and plan your strategies to win the Nether. Sometimes you would find it hard to defeat the whole squad of enemies at once. That's why you might find the luring strategy useful in Netherworld. The idea is just simple to lure out enemies one by one to make them less harmful to you. As you see here, it was best to lure out the flame charger, just to have some time, have some space to take out the tentacle shooter, then just let the flame charger go back into the place and take him out too. Well, in this case there were two of them. Also another Wraith started following me, so I took her out away from the others. Here I could also use the free block trick, but let's assume that in the situation you're right now in, it's not possible. Right now just avoiding the rest of the group to kill off the tentacle shooter from here so he cannot shoot you on your way to the caster and the flame jumper. Then avoiding only the shooter trap and their own attacks, you'll find it much easier to defeat both of the casters rather than fighting the whole group at once. If you go back to the monster section, you will know the attack patterns, so it will be much easier to choose the perfect way to approach. So going to the wings, every single part is possible without them. And my personal advice would be to start over practicing Nether without using a pair of wings. Just to get used to the traps, get used to the parkour, and then when you start using them, go through all this more smoothly. Even though this part is much easier when you use the wings and double jump to the monster and then just grab the chest. Without them you can always jump on the mushroom, wait for the flame trap to go off, then just collect the chest and kill the monster. This trap might seem much harder because you have to jump from the very edge of the platform to get up there, holding right at jumping and left at landing. Even though it seems hard even with wings, trying without them and succeeding will make it much easier to get through it later with wings. Double jumps sometimes can be even troubleshooting, for example in this part where it's pretty hard to avoid the spike bombs with wings. That's why you need to first jump twice, then fall on the mushroom. When we're still in the jump enhancements, I wouldn't myself recommend using jump packs, because they really can be hard to control when in the small areas or in the places that need some precise jumps. It's just my opinion and people might control it better than me, but if you really would like to try, the cheapest jump pack, the Retributor jump pack, costs less than 50 warlocks right now. There are also jetpacks that, instead of a quick and high jumps, can offer long-lasting, much more controllable thrust. They take 5 seconds to recharge, but besides that and the price, there are no bigger downsides. The cheapest soda jetpack costs around 105 warlocks or 400,000 gems in the shop. As for the next tip, don't wait for people to carry you. The best way for you to get experience and improve is to fight the monsters yourself. Even though you might not find yourself with great skills, not with a great armor as others do, people will mostly appreciate your will to help. And even if they don't, just go alone. The more you do, the more experience you have, and the bigger the chances you'll eventually improve. Sometimes you might not even care about them, but take advantage of the checkpoints. When there's a big fight incoming, you'd rather spawn near it when you die to go back and fight than on the entrance gate or worse at the other side of the world. Also some kind of an advanced tip, even though it might sound a bit simple, is the trap recharge time. If you know that every repeatable trap has a recharge time of 5 seconds, you can just run around it knowing that you have still plenty of time before it launches again. It sounds simple, but for me it's really useful to do the Nether quickly. Also another unusual tip that, from what I heard from others, sounded even a bit absurdly, is to count how many hits does your weapon take to kill a monster, then just next time deal him as many hits as you counted before. First time I killed the tentacle shooter in 3 hits, so the next time I'm doing the same. Just 3 hits, then run away. Sometimes 1 or 2 hits might not be registered, but that's quite a rare thing. That tip is mostly for people who'd like to shorten the times or even speedrun Nether at some point. So the last and maybe even the most important thing, to practice. Without understanding Nether, even the most expensive, the best set might not be as useful as it should be. And if you practice and get better eventually, with a less expensive gear or even without it, you'll be able to finish the Netherworld in no time. So, practice makes perfect, I guess. And if you're still watching, I hope the guide was somewhat useful. And what else to say? Have a good one.